Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our web event today. This event will be largely a question and answer between myself. I'm the advocacy. My name is Troy Hester. I'm the advocacy project officer for the Disability Royal Commission at Family Advocacy, and the other person who will be answering our questions today is Will Duval, and Will, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi everyone. Yes, my name is Will Duval. I'm a solicitor at the Your Story Disability Legal Support Team, calling in from Sydney.
Great. I'm going to do an acknowledgement of country. We have come here together today, each from different places. I'm zooming in from Darkinjung country, which is the land north of the Hawkesbury River here in New South Wales by the ocean. And I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I stand. I also acknowledge the peoples and nations across this continent and pay my respects to elders past and present. And I look ahead to a future where there can be reconciliation. I extend this respect towards anyone Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander here today among us, and to everybody present on this Zoom call. As we start, if everyone can keep your microphones muted as we work through this, and this is so that everyone's got the best chance to hear what's said. You never know when the space you're in might be invaded by a noisy and embarrassing interruption. We've got the chat feature open throughout the session, and at any time you can feel free to type any questions you have there. Just be polite and respect others' privacy, and don't repeat or record anything that you see in the chat. At the top of our chat is a link to our feedback survey, and we'd love to hear your thoughts so that we can keep doing these and doing them better, and hearing what you have to say. As I said, we're going to record the first part of our session, so if you miss something that's said, don't worry. We're going to send you a link to the video, and you can ask for you can also ask for a transcript if that's the most helpful thing for you. I'm going to be asking Will a number of questions that we've prepared together, and some of these questions are based on what I've heard from different people. Hopefully we'll answer your question as we go, but at the end of my questions we're going to stop recording and we'll invite you to ask any other questions you have, and at any time you can type your question in the chat and I can ask Will at the end. If for any reason we run out of time to answer your questions, we will ask you to write them in the chat or send them in an email, and we'll send you Will's answer in a follow-up. Our session today will go for about 30 minutes, maybe up to 45, so hopefully there'll be time to answer them. Just be aware, we won't be giving specific advice on individual situations today. If you'd like legal advice on a specific matter, you can contact Your Story directly, and I'll give you contact details at the end of our time. One last important thing, although today we're not going to be talking about specific issues in detail, it might be that while listening you find yourself getting upset or reacting in some way. Please, maybe it's because you're reminded of something difficult or traumatic, or maybe you just suddenly find yourself needing some extra space and support. Please do what you need to do to take care of yourself. Feel free to leave the session and come back when you're ready, or just wait for the link to the recording. Anytime you need additional emotional support while discussing things with or about the Disability Royal Commission, you can contact Blue Knot on 1800-421-468. Before we get started, I want to introduce one other person who is very well known to some of you. Cecile Sullivan-Elder is the Executive Officer here at Family Advocacy. Cecile's going to give us a brief introduction to Family Advocacy. Thanks, Cecile.
Yeah, thanks, Troy, and welcome everybody. Certainly really fabulous to be a part of this conversation around how all of you, I'm sure, are interested in engaging with the work of the Disability Royal Commission. Obviously, Family Advocacy is really passionate about supporting the connection between people's stories and what's gone on, and how that can actually influence the work of the Royal Commission going forward, and at the end of that, the recommendation, so we can strengthen systems across the country to work certainly a lot more proactively and supportive towards people with disability. For those that aren't familiar, Family Advocacy is a statewide organisation that was founded approximately 30 years ago, 29 years ago, I think, this year, by families that came together from across New South Wales because they absolutely were concerned about what was on offer to their family members with disability, and there was a lot of issues occurring. Certainly issues that are still relevant today around abuse, neglect and exploitation. And the particular focus of the founding families were on obviously trying to remove as many of those barriers as possible, but to actually look at how do we work with families so that they can advocate with or on behalf of their family member to get certainly a full and inclusive life embedded in community. So to try and make that happen, there's a few things that we do. We offer across the state advocacy advice, predominantly with families, but certainly with others that ring up allies of people with disabilities themselves that are needing to navigate the system in relation to issues that are going on. We also do and undertake systemic advocacy, and the reform that we seek and the changes that we seek through that arm of the organisation looks at number one, trying to remove some of those most obvious barriers, but also to reform systems so that they are fully inclusive and acknowledge that people with disabilities need to be definitely embedded in community like everybody else. The organisation continues to be founded by families of people with disabilities, and staff and allies as well make up, where possible, families and people with disabilities, and as allies of people with disabilities as well. So look, before we hand over, just really, as I said, excited is probably the wrong word, because it's not a good reason to be here in this space, but the importance of actually running this webinar and more webinars so that we can really try and knowledge up and skill up families as much as possible and other interested parties so that they can actually engage with the work and again strengthen what's happening for people with disabilities more broadly after the Commission's finished. I'll hand over to you. Thanks, Troy.
Thanks, Cecile. Okay, we're now going to move on to our question and answer time. If you've just arrived, welcome. Can you please make sure your mics are muted, and we'll invite you to unmute them and ask questions at the end. Again, these questions have been prepared from conversations and questions I've had with people that I've been supporting to engage with the Disability Royal Commission. So hopefully it will cover at least some of the questions that you have. Okay, Will, are you ready to start?
Yes, ready to go.
Okay, great. So you're from Your Story Disability Support. That's an interesting name. Can you start by telling us about the name and what it is that you do?
Of course. So Your Story Disability Legal Support is a free nationwide legal service and assistance service for people engaging with the Disability Royal Commission. We actually used to be called the Disability Royal Commission Legal Service, but we really wanted a name that would help everyone to understand that we are independent from the Royal Commission. So we consulted with the disability sector and chose this name to emphasise that we're here to support people with disability to share their stories with the Royal Commission. And we've been using our new name since March. Your Story is a partnership between National Legal Aid and National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Legal Services, or NATSLs. This means that it includes lawyers and client information officers from all legal aid commissions and most Aboriginal legal services. NATSLs is made up of Aboriginal community control organisations in each state and territory, and has employed Aboriginal lawyers and community legal educators in some jurisdictions. So Your Story is culturally safe for First Nations peoples. We can provide information and legal advice to people with a disability, their carers, friends, family members, supporters or advocates who are thinking about or want to share a story with the Royal Commission. We are flexible and provide trauma-informed advice in a way that works for clients. We have a no wrong door policy. However, at the moment, due to COVID restrictions, we have suspended face-to-face sessions in most states and territories based on health directions. We are continuing to provide support to people over the phone or on Skype or online conferencing calls. We can arrange for interpreters, both Auslan and other languages, and are happy for clients to be supported in their appointments, if they want to be, by disability advocates or support people. And Your Story is a multidisciplinary team. So we have a social worker on our team who can connect clients presenting with complex issues with other services that they need.
Great. So I know I want to share my story with the Disability Royal Commission. How can you help?
So our staff at Your Story can tailor support to clients and their needs. That might involve one or more of the following: advice on safe ways to engage with the Disability Royal Commission, supporting communicating with the Royal Commission if requested. So, for example, if requesting a private session or a notice to produce. Support drafting submissions in circumstances where a client is unable to do so themselves or has been unable to obtain support from a culturally safe disability advocate and meets our criteria for this level of assistance. Our NATSLs staff intend to assist any First Nations person who asks for help to prepare a submission. We also offer reasonable support from a lawyer to prepare for a private session in line with the capacity of our service. Referrals to other services funded to support people to engage with the Royal Commission, including disability advocacy services and counselling services. Referring clients who are called by the Royal Commission as witnesses to private solicitors for representation and advice at a public hearing. Referrals for advice from other lawyers if you may have a legal pathway to resolve your situation in addition to sharing it with the Royal Commission, for example, discrimination claims or Centrelink issues. And information about the Disability Royal Commission submissions process, focus topics, upcoming hearings and community forums, and contact details. It's also important to remember that the role of the Royal Commission is not to resolve your individual situation, but to make recommendations for broader improvements.
Great, thanks. My next question is, how much detail do I need to give in my story? How long should it be?
So generally you can include as much or as little detail as you like. It really depends on how you share your story. Mm-hmm. For example, if you participate in a private session, you will generally only have 1 to 2 hours to speak to a Royal Commissioner, but you can also submit other information to support your story. You can make your submission in any way, such as an image or a video or an audio clip. Think about what the most important message is that you want to share with the Disability Royal Commission. What is the most important message that you want the Royal Commission to take away? Focusing on these key messages can help you to decide what to include and what documents you will need to support your story. Some ideas of what you may choose to cover in your submission include your experience of how you have been hurt, treated badly, refused help, or taken advantage of because of disability, your knowledge of other people with disability who have been or are being hurt, treated badly, refused help, or taken advantage of because of disability. If you have shared your experiences with someone in the past and what happened, any ideas or examples of how things could be done better or what already works well. and your hopes for the future.
Great. And when I share my experience, is it okay to name names? Can I name the school or the service or the worker involved?
So it is your choice if you want to name an organisation or a person when you share your story, but there are some risks and steps you can take to protect yourself from these risks. Some risks of naming names are someone might try to take you to court or someone might mistreat you. If you want to name an organisation or a person in your submission, but you're concerned that someone might try to take you to court, it's important to tell the facts as you remember them and as clearly as you can. It's also important to not repeat your story to other people, including on social media. If you want to name an organisation or a person, but you're concerned that someone might mistreat you, we suggest that you do get legal advice before giving information to the Disability Royal Commission. And there are special ways to engage with the Royal Commission that will protect your safety. When you use these special ways, it is a criminal offence to injure you or to cause you disadvantage.
Sorry, I heard you say social media. Did you say it's not okay for me to share my story on social media?
So again, it is your choice whether you want to share your story on social media. However, the Disability Royal Commission's protections don't apply to a story that is shared on social media. So when you share your story with the Royal Commission, you can get protections that should stop others from doing things such as harming you or cancelling your services or disadvantaging you in other ways because you have shared your story with the Royal Commission. If you share your story on social media, these protections don't apply. On social media, you also have less control of your story. Other people can share your post and comment on it. People or organisations you name may also use that information against you. Even if you delete your story from social media later on, there will still be a permanent record of it on the internet.
Okay, thanks. So what about my name? Should I use my real name with my story? How can I stay anonymous?
So it is your choice if you want to use your real name. If you do not use your real name, there could still be some information that identifies you. So it's important to get advice about how to protect yourself. When making your submission, you can ask the Disability Royal Commission to not publish your submission in any way. So if you're using the online form or the PDF submission form, you can tick the circle on the form with your choice to stay anonymous. Or if you're using your own document or sending a submission in another format, you can just tell the Royal Commission that you want to stay anonymous when you send it in. We recommend that you call your story disability legal support for advice about your situation.
Great. Thanks, Will. So here's a question I've heard from somebody else. I come from a small community. I don't want to run the risk of ruining relationships or make it hard for me to keep getting the services I use. What steps can I take to protect myself?
The most private way to share your story is in a private session with a commissioner from the Disability Royal Commission. Only the people who work at the Royal Commission and anyone that you ask to come along will know you shared your story. You can also talk to the Royal Commission about how they can arrange a private session for you so that others don't know about it. For example, you may want to do your private session on a video call so you can do it in your own home, or at a trusted person's home. Or you may want to have your private session in a nearby community so that you can go there safely where no one else doesn't know you. If you would like support either registering, preparing, or attending your private session, you can call Your Story Disability Legal Support.
Thanks. So, say I've already written something that I want to send to the Commission. Can you at Your Story look over my draft and give me legal advice?
We can. So if you contact us for support and you tell us that you have a draft submission, we can work out how you can share it with us so that a lawyer can read it before giving you advice. It's also helpful for us to look at your draft to understand if you have any particular concerns or questions. For example, if you tell us that you're worried about being anonymous, our lawyer can give you advice about making sure that you can't be identified from your submission. However, we can only give legal advice about the draft and generally cannot help with writing, editing, or formatting. If you need this kind of support, we can refer you to a disability advocate.
Thanks. So here's a legal question. What if I've signed a non-disclosure agreement? Does that mean I can't share my story?
No. So there are special ways to engage with the Disability Royal Commission that will protect your safety and avoid breaking a legal agreement that you have signed. The appropriate option will depend on your individual circumstances. So we recommend that you call us for advice that's tailored to your situation. Generally, if you have signed a non-disclosure agreement, there are two ways that you can share your story. The first is to ask to share your story in a private session with the Commissioner. The second way is to ask the Royal Commission to give you a notice to produce. A notice to produce means that the Royal Commission will require you to give certain information or documents. It is important to get legal advice if you receive a notice to produce. One of our lawyers can support you to respond correctly. And this is important because legally you must comply with a notice to produce once you receive it. And if you respond to a notice to produce correctly, you will get extra protections.
Great. Thanks, Will. I've heard what you said, but I'm still worried because someone told me that even if I ask to be anonymous, anything I share can be looked at after the Royal Commission is over. Is that true?
If you make an anonymous submission and you ask the Disability Royal Commission to keep it private, the Royal Commission will not publish your submission during or after the Royal Commission. After the Royal Commission ends in April 2022, someone could make a Freedom of Information request for a copy of your submission, but only if the request is accepted can they get a copy of your submission. Material that has been provided to the Royal Commission in confidence may not be released under Freedom of Information. And even if your submission is released, your submission would still be in an anonymous form. So your confidentiality would still be protected. If you participate in a private session, while you won't be anonymous to the Royal Commission, your story will be kept private even after the Royal Commission ends. And it will stay private for 99 years. No one will be able to look up your story or get access to your story even after the Royal Commission ends. And Your Story Disability Legal Service, our service, is available to support you during the life of the Royal Commission, so you can contact us at any time. And if you later on realise that you need more advice, you can get back in contact and we'll be happy to help.
I know a number of people have already registered for a private session, and I know they're not happening at the moment, and so they're waiting for them to restart. A face-to-face private session with the Commissioner sounds really good. What happens to my story after a private session?
If you share your story at a private session, the Disability Royal Commission will keep your story private and has powers to protect you. Some of what you share with the Royal Commission may help it to make recommendations for change and might be included in its reports. If parts of your story are used to help make recommendations or in reports, the Royal Commission will not include your personal details. Your details will remain private. The Royal Commission might ask you if you want to share your story at a public hearing after you participate in a private session. You can decide if you want to share your story at a public hearing or you want to keep it private.
Great, thanks, Will. Well, that's the end of our formal question and answer. I'm just going to share some of those links with you, so you've got them there. We'll put those up on the screen now. So there are 4 links that we have here. Firstly, the Disability Royal Commission. That's the free call number there, and you can ring and ask them about any questions that you have. You can also ring them in order to book a phone session or a private session through there. The website's there. Your Story Disability Legal Support, where Will is from, their number is there, and they're able to send a web request. Is that correct?
Yes, so you can go to that website there and go through to contact, and there is an online form where you can put in any request, including a request to speak with a lawyer.
Thanks. Blue Knot Counselling. Blue Knot have a contract to help anybody as they think about put in a submission, or even after they've put in a submission, for counselling service there. And then, of course, Family Advocacy, which is where I'm from. That's our number. Call if you'd like any support around putting a submission in, or any other questions that you have, and ask for me. You can find our extra resources at that web address there as well. So just as we come to the end, first of all, thanks for listening. I'm going to, in a moment, ask you to, if you've got a question, you can unmute and ask, and we'll take questions one at a time. We have a feedback form, which is right at the top of our chat, and we'd love you to give us our feedback form, and we'll also email that to you later. But if you're sitting and listening to other questions, you might want to start to fill that in now. We have another web event happening on the 29th of June, and that will be, the topic there will be medical safeguarding in the times of COVID-19.